It is Monday, July 21st, and it's getting pretty late with Jake Landau. Another Monday episode for you folks. Sometimes we flex it to a Monday instead of a Sunday when we have a guest who we can't get on a Sunday, but I really want to have on the show. And we are lucky enough to have that opportunity today with a friend of mine who is a committed liberal, a community activist, former vice-chair of the TDSB and trustee for Eglinton Lawrence. Her name is Jennifer Arp, and it is an absolute privilege to have her on the show today to chat about a bunch of things. So, Jennifer, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for inviting me to come, Jake. I'm looking forward to the discussion today. We have a lot of topics to get
I
through.
know. It's like the two main things I wanted to talk with you about today is obviously as an Ontario Liberal and a member of the New Leaf Liberals, you have some opinions about the future of the Ontario Liberal Party and Bonnie Crombie's leadership. I know the other one we wanted to talk about was also the takeover by the Ford government of the TDSB, which, as former vice chair, I'm sure you have some opinions about the removal of democracy. So we'll get into both of those. But I also did just want to mention to folks that me and Jennifer both know each other from in the way back in 2018 when Doug Ford did the cut in half of city council when Jennifer was running for city council and I was running for the school board in Eglinton Lawrence. And we both got caught up in that, and we were got merged into ridings with incumbents and pretty popular ones, unfortunately for us.
Yes, that is true.
Folks, I'll tell you, it's a lot better running unopposed for the school board than running against Shelley Laskin.
And it's much better to run unopposed for city council than running against Mike Cole.
Yeah.
So I think our stories are the same.
We gave it the good old college try, but it's like we've known each other since then. We've been friends, and like that. So it is great to like have you on the show and be able to talk about like these more current stories. But it's nice to reminisce about that a little as well. So to get into the actual meat of things today, why? So you're a member of the New Leaf Liberals, and we've had one of their co-founders, Noah Parker, on the program 2 weeks ago to talk about why he helped start things up and why he feels this way about the future of the Ontario Liberal Party and Bonnie Crombie. But why? What are your feelings, and why did you choose to join up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I hadn't been involved actively as a liberal in a number of years. Just life and career taking me in different directions, and made the choice to do some door knocking right at the 11th hour on the provincial election in February in my winter coat and boots. And really, at that point, was really frustrated at the lack of leadership coming from the party, how local campaigns were feeling based on that. I mean, our riding Eglinton Lawrence lost by 150 votes.
And then the same guy won federally in the exact same riding.
Exactly.
Which really just rubs the salt in, because, I mean, that especially shows that the problem is not the candidate or the people in the riding at all.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And I mean, I know with Vince Gasparo, I know I've criticized him on some foreign policy, but credit is where credit's due. Like he won it fair and square, and like he did prove that like the problem was not anyone in Eglinton Lawrence. It was a perfectly winnable election. And I would argue
he ran a great campaign.
And I would argue the conditions were harder for the federal Liberal Party in that riding than they were for the provincial Liberals because of the foreign policy stuff on Israel and Palestine.
I absolutely agree with you.
So it really shows like that it is frustrating. It's like you want to be able to win these things, and when you know they should be winnable, but you're being held back by something, it does get you mad.
It does. And also, because I was mad, I had two choices. One, I could continue to be mad and doom scroll the internet like everyone else that is mad,
Guilty
or
as
get re-engaged, and that's when I found New Leaf Liberals. The positions of New Leaf Liberals, specifically around the leadership of the party, not just who is the leader of the party, but the overall leadership of the party, really resonated with me and aligns with, what I believe are some of the structural issues with with the party.
It's not even about a specific person for you then. It's about like what kind of person should be a leader.
Correct. It's not, I was not involved in the last leadership contest at all.
And for disclosure,
Yeah,
I was involved with Nate Erskine-Smith's leadership, and if he did run again, I probably would like him, but also I would, to be fair, and look at who the other candidates are too. But like, so I guess that leads us to the next thing. Like, how do you or other New Leaf liberals feel about Nate writing his thoughts on things more explicitly? Because there has been some complaints that it's now becoming more of a Bonnie versus Nate thing again, rather than being about whether it should be Bonnie or anybody else.
yeah, and I think one of the great things about being involved with New Leaf is that we're not always 100% aligned on everything.
Right.
And we're all free to have our own opinions.
I know, Noah Parker, when he came on the program, like, he was very effusive about how he wanted Karina Gould, and even though Karina Gould said she's not interested, he still wants her to be interested. So, and it's like, and that really does get me when, like, you see things in, like, written, like, say, the Toronto Star, where they just label the New Leaf Liberals as Nate Erskine-Smith proxy.
I think it's really unfair.
Yeah.
Because it's not true.
Right.
Yes, there are people that were involved in Nate's campaign, involved in the New Leaf Liberals, and involved in the leadership of the New Leaf Liberals, but that doesn't mean that all of us are.
Right.
And in fact,
for example, all the Burlington liberals who keep on talking endlessly about Karina Gould.
Yes. Yes. And I would say that some of the tactics that Nate is using right now don't necessarily resonate with me. Right. I'm more likely to not support someone like Nate based on the tactics that he's using rather than engage with his campaign.
Right. And that's fair and that's valid because, like, I mean, again, I like Nate, but I understand that there are some people his personality may not mesh well with as well. And truthfully, the same thing can be said about me. Like, there are people that like me and like listening to this podcast, and there are people who hear my name and they recoil in horror.
I think it's true for everyone.
True. A little bit more true in the Liberal Party for me, though, unfortunately. But
some might say me as well.
Well, we like you, Jen. You're great. But no, but yeah, it's like that does frustrate me. Like, I wish we could talk more about Bonnie, because it is really about what she promised, what she said she would be able to accomplish for the Liberal Party, and then what she wasn't able to do. Like,
and further to that, her response to not being able to do what she said she was going to do. It's taken a really long time to hear from Bonnie publicly about the campaign. And I as a longtime Liberal Party member, I mean, a very long time, I won't say how long, 25 years, but as a longtime member, I was really frustrated. I want to support a leader who's a woman, as a woman engaged in politics. And not being able to do that in this moment is extremely difficult for me. But I also know that she couldn't win the trust of the province. If you left Toronto during the campaign, a lot of people didn't know who she was. And if they did know who she was, they didn't have a lot of good things to say. And so I think, it's our responsibility as members of the Liberal Party to say, hold on a second, just because, now all of a sudden she's taking some accountability and promising changes after the AGM and, those types of things. It's still, can she win a general election? And can she win a general election against Doug Ford or whomever may come after?
And what
Doug
actually
Ford?
is the accountability being promised if, like, nothing changes and everybody responsible for the failure stays?
It's still there.
Yeah.
And, and now the big thing is, we're going to open nominations in January 2026. That doesn't change. You need to address nominations at the grassroots level.
Right.
That's not, and that's putting a Band-Aid on a problem.
I mean, to be fair, I am in favor of opening nominations earlier, just for the very simple reason that if Doug Ford did the early election call trick once. He'll probably do it again.
Yes. And
But you need to
I
do it
agree
with
with
proper
you.
resources. Like
You need to be able to do it with proper
you need to
resources, and you need,
promise there will be deputy returning officers actually assigned to these ridings
yes,
for contested nominations. You need to
yes, and you
promise
need
you'll
to have,
greenlight more than one candidate so it's not
correct.
just an acclamation.
I was going to say you need to have real structural changes on how those nomination processes go.
I know.
And you need
I
to
ran
allow
one
local
in
writing
December, and
associations.
it was hell. Like I ran one in December in Carleton, and that was when both I and the returning officer found out that technically there's no rule against a candidate being their own scrutineer, and he apologized to me that my candidate's opponent did this, but they couldn't stop it. So essentially, one of the candidates who wasn't my candidate, the other one, got to stand behind all of the people as you went up to get your ballot. Like, so like that desk where you go to collect your ballot
Yes.
and they check your name. He just got to be there looking over, and I'm like, that's absurd. Like that's fundamentally absurd. That like you can't. There's so much wrong with the way that partisan nominations are run in general in this country. It's not just the Ontario Liberal Party. I know we're not in an America cruising mood right now, but credit where credit is due to the Americans. They just had a free and fair nomination for the Democratic nomination for mayor of New York. And I don't
Yes.
know that Zoran Mamdani would have been allowed to run against Andrew Cuomo if it was for the Liberal Party nomination.
Correct.
Uh, but
Correct.
I'm certainly happy he beat the guy. Like, I think we
Yeah.
all are. Uh,
I think we all are. And I think that, I think there are bigger systemic issues with the nomination process. They need to be addressed. And, we also need to really take a hard look at how we recruit candidates. The Liberal Party, both federally and provincially, needs to stop thinking that people are just going to raise their hand to run. We're in an age where,
Especially women. Like, we know that, like, women are less likely to run
correct.
on their own initiative. And I mean, I know this firsthand just because, like, back when I used to work more actively on campaigns and once upon a time managed them, like, the vast majority of candidates I worked for were female candidates. And a lot of the time I was having to, like, hype them up and get them as confident, like, as they would be if it was a man in that position. And it sucked because they shouldn't have to feel that way. But like, it's just over decade. You get what I mean? It's like
It is
women are
everything. It's
taught not to
everything.
advocate for themselves, and it just puts me in the crazy position as a guy where I'm telling a woman, no, you should advocate for yourself. It's okay. Like, why I shouldn't be the
It
one to say it. Like,
it's also, I think that we're in a crisis of being able to attract good women also because of social media.
yeah, like,
Because the minute you put a photo of yourself out there, it's scrutinized, it's picked apart. The minute you knock on a door, like I have stories.
oh yeah,
Knocking on a door in 40-degree humidex in Toronto, and then, a man at the door asking why I'm not wearing makeup.
God, no,
And when you have it is very hard to convince a woman who, has a career, maybe has a family, to put their name on a ballot when
they'll get
there
like a
isn't
whole volume
strong,
of
and I
sexual
also,
harassment. Like,
it's beyond that, but it's also, without strong policy positions and without, you know, support for her campaign and without a leader who's going to say, yes, we need more women and I'm going to support women. I'm going to come to your riding and lift you up. And, we're going to do what we can for you. I
right.
mean, if you go onto the website for the AGM for the Ontario Liberal Party, how many people are running to represent the Ontario Women's Liberal Commission?
Right. And
And we
like,
have a leader who's a woman.
yeah, and that honestly is what, like, people think that if you just put someone of an underrepresented category in the top position of leadership, then you just fix all the structural issues with all the people down the chain who are still racist and sexist and homophobic and all the other bigotries.
Yeah.
Like it, and that is honestly, it's a problem with the Ontario Liberal Party, and I'm tired of pretending it's not there. There's a lot of pieces of shit. like, like, And like and you're right, it's like, especially with like what women experience like at the door and like knocking on doors, making as candidates, like you're right, it's not just harassment, but like there is a lot of harassment. It's like I've knocked on doors where like I open it and there's just a guy who's like completely buck naked, and like
Yep.
that is not
Yep.
okay. Like that's extremely not okay. It's like, so,
Yes.
I see some people laughing it off and telling it as like their funny canvassing story, and I'm like, no, homie, that's sexual harassment. That's a crime. Like that's violating. Like it's just frustrating, and if it's frustrating for me, I can't imagine how frustrating it must be actually for women. Like to have to live this every fucking day.
Yeah.
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 It, so yeah, I get the angle that you talk about, like when it sucks that like you don't want it to feel like Bonnie Crombie is being attacked for being a woman, like, and you don't want to feel like there's a guy trying to gun and unseat a woman from her position of leadership. But
Correct.
you also don't want to put people in a position of like being labeled in a derogatory way for just saying, "Hey, I want someone who can win their own seat."
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's the thing with like it's like it very much is just like she promised to win the whole government, then she promised 35 seats, and then she promised to carry Peel, and then she couldn't even win her own seat in Mississauga where she
She
was
couldn't
mayor
even
for
win
10
her own
years.
seat. And so she's not there. And in
And
the
where will she
absence,
be? Like where will she run?
well, we don't know.
I know at one point, like from talking to a couple of her staffers, like on background, they were mentioning that maybe Natalie Pierre, the conservative MPP for Burlington, might be resigning soon because she didn't want to run again, but Doug Ford made her run again. Because of the early snap election, because they didn't have time to put in a different candidate. So there's rumor that she may resign like a bit further into the future, and then Bonnie may try and go there. But I'm not sure about that plan. And there's like, if that's the best plan you have, like to wait for three different dominoes to fall in succession, like, and then you have a chance. Like,
And then you're missing that time
yeah,
in the legislature.
and being in the press room at Queen's Park,
Yes.
unfortunately, just isn't enough because most of the journalists aren't bothering to go down to the room anymore. They're just watching it on a closed circuit TV from their office on the second
Well,
floor.
and I think beyond that, you know, for those that aren't necessarily politically engaged, this summer, the leader of the Ontario Liberal Party is spending her time shoring up support rather than going out and having, kitchen table chats and
Meanwhile, Doug
talking with
Ford
people.
hosts a carnival with free hot dogs
Yes.
and
And
rides. Yeah.
you look at Marit, and she's, on a big Northern Ontario tour. She's doing the things that she needs to do and she should be doing. She's not worried about, how the party feels about her leadership. She's going out and being leader of the party.
Yeah, it's
And
you want
and we're
to.
seeing the polar opposite to that in the Ontario Liberal Party with the scramble with a leader who, obviously is insecure in her leadership and feels like instead of demonstrating why she was chosen as leader of the Liberal Party, she's going around to the back rooms and trying to shore up her support.
I know, and what really frustrated me, and this will probably be our final bit on this before we get on to the TDSB stuff, but like what frustrated me was like a couple days ago, I know there was the New Leaf Liberal event in Ottawa where a random heckler came who was apparently anti Nate Erskine Smith or whatever, and that's not the main thing that frustrated me. But it's like there seemed to be such a concern about the New Leaf Liberals just hosting like a pub night with people talking that suddenly, like a day or two later, like the entirety of the Ontario Liberal caucus of MPPs were all tweeting out various tweets attacking Nate Erskine Smith, saying that this isn't a backup plan. I know the regional vice president East, Matt Gagne, talked about delusions of grandeur. And I'm like, this is not the way to talk to people if you want them to vote for you to keep your jobs.
No, and I know we want to move on because we have lots of other things to talk about today. but I will say this, and I've said it in a previous interview. A good leader would look at a group like New Leaf Liberals, who are many of whom are longtime volunteers who have run or wanted to run, and say, let's sit down. Let's talk. You having an event? Do you mind if I come? I really want to hear what people are concerned about. I really want to hear from this group that feels like their voices aren't being heard, or that the grassroots of the party is being ignored. And she's not doing that. Instead,
She'll
you
be
know, newly,
nice in her own interviews. Like I know she was with Deb Hutton on
yes,
iHeartRadio on News Talk 1010, and like she was polite in that. Aside from when she said that rural ridings need to be handheld, which I found patronizing as all hell. But like her
engage
surrogates
with the
are
grassroots.
mean. Like
Yes, and hey, New Leaf Liberals, let's have a chat.
yeah, like she could come
If
to
we
one of
had
the
the
pub
right
nights.
leader,
Like
yes, if we had the right leader, that would be happening.
yeah, it's like I know there's going to be a pub night like in soon in Mississauga, I believe, like or in Burlington, or like I think there's multiple that'll be happening around Peel and Halton. So like, go, she can go.
They're
She
open to
can
everyone. Come on, Bonnie,
it's
join
like
us.
pro Crombie people are more than welcome at those New Leaf Liberal
Yeah.
events, just as long as you don't heckle the host while they try to
Yeah.
speak, which is rude. But moving on to our second main topic of this front half, you previously served as the school board trustee for Eglinton Lawrence, and at one point you were the vice chair of the TDSB as on the board, which I mean, as someone who ran for that seat myself, like I respect that a lot because it's a very important job, and I think so. I did want to ask for your perspective, just as someone who's held that high position of responsibility, like, and who has had to make a lot of hard choices about how to best take care of the children in our community and make sure they get the best education they deserve. Recently the Ford government took administration over several school boards, including the Toronto District School Board. Now there's just a government-appointed official who's making all the decisions, and not only are school board trustees no longer allowed to vote, they're no longer allowed to access the board-issued devices or their board emails to contact constituents or even reply to constituents, and absurdly, they've apparently even been told that they're not allowed to simply talk to their constituents in any medium, digital or real life, about TDSB issues.
Correct.
That seems a little insane.
And I feel like this is a step further than what we've seen in supervision and other boards.
Well, yeah. Like, how do you legally, like, with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, how can you possibly tell a school board trustee, even if you're saying that they no longer can exercise the duties of their office, how can you tell them they're not allowed to talk to like people? Like, it's absurd.
It's what people choose to do as independent citizens is their choice, and if they're sitting in a coffee shop and
like you're telling them they don't have the job anymore
them,
and they don't get the money anymore for it,
and they're not getting paid.
So then what? How can you possibly tell them what to do anymore? You told them they're fired.
Yes.
Like you laid them.
Yes. You fired democracy.
Like,
is what you did, and you did it in some of the largest boards in the province. And I said it in 2018 when this government first got elected, and that first round of negotiations with the teachers unions occurred. I said, this is the beginning of the end of locally elected school boards. And here we are in 2015, where on the last day of school, the government announces that they're taking over some of the largest boards in the province.
Not just some of the largest boards in a province, but like the Toronto District School Board in particular, I believe it's one of the
fourth largest
on the continent.
North America.
Yeah,
correct.
It's just
250,000 students, 33,000 staff, 280 schools, or whatever it is. It's or 600, 500, and it's been a while since I've been there. My numbers are off. Um, and literally taken their locally elected voice away from them.
And, like, even from, like, a pragmatic perspective from Doug Ford, assuming that you have no morals at all and don't care about democracy, which I do have morals and I do care about democracy, but, like, you would think he would realize, like, how many, like, PC MPP candidates get their feet under them initially as local school board trustees. Like, I mean, it's the same for the NDP too. It's only really the liberals who don't
It's the
realize
liberals. We could have a whole other podcast about
who are
that.
too stupid to realize that they should develop players in the minor leagues. Not to call it that, but also, unfortunately, if you only pay like $20,000 a year and say it's a part-time elected position, people unfortunately will take it less seriously.
Correct.
And I didn't like that especially when I was.
I don't think people take it less seriously. I don't think that is not.
I mean, you can't give it the 40 hours, is what I mean.
I've sat in that room,
right,
with people, with my colleagues,
right.
And I wouldn't say that there's anyone that didn't take the job seriously.
No, yeah, that's what I don't mean that. I meant more that, like, you can't give it like a 40-hour week because you have to have it, not their job.
You have to have another job. And as vice chair of the board, I didn't have another job. And I got a grand total of, a whopping extra $5,000 a year.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's like you will not attract the best quality candidates to the school board if you don't pay them what they deserve. And frankly, they deserve a lot more for, like, the high responsibility they're given.
Correct.
Yeah. And I know it's like it's an unpopular thing for me to go around saying politicians should be paid more money. But the truth is, like, I do think a lot of politicians should be paid more money. And I wasn't even that upset about Doug Ford increasing salaries for MPPs.
Not at all. You're oftentimes asking people to take a pay cut to run.
Yeah, and he was just fixing what Mike Harris broke. Like,
correct.
In
education, he's finishing breaking what Mike Harris broke. So here we are.
Yeah, it's like, let's not give Doug Ford any much credit here, folks. Like, I'm still upset about the Science Center. I mean, that just shows another aspect of his attitude to education.
Well, and you've now appointed supervisors across the province, and not a single one of them has any experience in education.
And not just education, but they won't even know the neighborhoods that those trustees were there to advocate for. The whole point,
they don't know the neighborhoods. They don't care.
Yeah. When I talk about the Science Center, folks, like, remember, it's in Thorncliffe Park. It's a very poor area of Toronto. There's a lot of, like, new immigrant communities living there, and, like, part of the joy of, like, Mark Garneau, the high school, and the Ontario Science Center especially, is putting it there was to make sure that this resource was accessible to people who may not get that kind of quality resource. And, like, the whole idea of having a local representative, like a trustee, represent that kind of neighborhood is so that when the cold bureaucracy tries to ignore them, the trustee doesn't let them.
Correct. And when you look at a lot of the advances that have been made within education, and when you look at equity of access within publicly funded education, all of that work came from trustees.
Yeah, it's like, listen.
And so when we talk about student outcomes, and we talk about looking at LGBTQ2+ community and educational outcomes, or Black boys and educational outcomes, gains have been made because local trustees have been there to advocate.
Right. Like, you are the person who they go to when everyone in the system tells them there's nothing to be done. Like,
correct.
Yeah.
And sometimes nothing can be done. And one of the hardest things of being trustee is knowing there's nothing that can be done.
Right. I mean, at least if you're a good one, like, then you feel bad about not being able to help people. But, like, I will say, I do think there is a place for supervision of boards sometimes in this province, and where it really gets me would be the Catholic boards. And it's nothing to do with finances, but it has everything to do with far right extremist school board trustees, like, trying to persecute, like, queer students in the board. Like,
Correct.
and it frustrates me that under Kathleen Wynne's government, we didn't do anything about this, like, or not
Correct.
nearly enough. Like, because, I mean,
Because it's still,
yeah.
at the end of the day, Catholic education is still publicly funded
Right.
education.
And it's funded by all of our tax dollars. I think
Correct.
like people don't understand, like when people think that you on your municipal property taxes you get to designate where it goes. And that's technically true, but the province legally has to equalize it per capita
It
for each student from
it's
general
not
revenue.
really true.
Yeah.
It's not really true. It used to be true before Mike Harris.
Right.
But now it really is
Yeah.
just what ballot you're going to get on municipal
Yeah.
election day.
And like, and that frustrates me even more. It's like, as a Jew, I'm having my money, my tax dollars taken to fund a Catholic school that says that my religion is wrong, that my sexuality is wrong, and I don't get I mean, it's part of why, I mean, since forever, I've always been an advocate for merging the boards.
Yeah.
I guess Doug Ford's plan is to get rid of both of them.
And we're just going to not have boards anymore. How many boards are there in this province?
Yeah, I guess Thanos snapping is an option too, Doug.
How many boards are there in this province? Gosh, there's got to be
soon to be
200?
0, I guess.
Who are all of those directors of education going to report to when there are no longer school boards?
They'll just create a new bureaucracy to replace the old one and say they've accomplished something.
Yeah. I'll go to the deputy minister. That's a lot of direct reports.
Yeah. Typical Doug Ford policy: rip out the electric vehicle chargers and then make plans to put in new ones.
Yes. Look, at the end of the day, the structure of school boards, is it perfect? No. But it's better than provincially appointed boards. And it certainly creates the type of discord that overall improves the quality of public education.
Well,
And in the absence of that, as a parent in the system, I worry that we're going back to the type of education that existed in the 50s and the 60s and into the 70s, even in the 80s, the type of education that I had. And that type of education isn't reflective of what kids need in order to be successful in the world today. When we talk about, kids don't know math, or they don't know how to spell, or they can't, and cursive's missing, all of these things. We have to take a really hard look at where we are in the world today. Look at what do kids need in order to be competitive in the career paths that they choose. And then ensuring that our publicly funded education system is reflective of that. And that includes understanding the world around them and different cultures and different races, and understanding how to have healthy discourse with people who have different opinions of you, or different opinions than you do. And this government is quickly stripping away all of that.
Right.
In favor of an education system that was designed for individuals who are going to go and work in factories.
Yeah. And I remember, like, I initially started out going to private school. I went to Bialik Hebrew Day School, Jewish day school, until from kindergarten to grade 8. But it was like by the end of that where I was telling my parents, no, for high school, I want to go to a public school. I want to go somewhere where people don't all look the same as me and talk the same as me. I want to, and it says something that even at 13 years old, I didn't know what was missing, but I knew something was missing, and I knew public school was, and it was genuinely the best decision I ever made as a child. And I'm glad that my parents respected that and that they thought public school would be a better decision as well. And the 4 years I spent at Northern Secondary, they were incredible. They were some of the happiest years of my childhood. It's it was just a completely different experience. And I love public schools. I think they should be like palaces. I think children should walk in there and they should be enriched in ways that they wouldn't have been able to comprehend.
Yes, and I also believe that we should be listening to student voice when they're saying, "Hey, I'm getting a great education," and not necessarily parent voice,
Right.
because that's also what's happening right now. Is
So,
that
for a
fringe
final
minority of
question,
parents?
then,
Yes,
would you support allowing people in high schools and the TDSB or other school boards to vote for trustees?
I think that we should be lowering the voting age to 16 across the board.
True. But do you allow people, say, who are like 13, 14, who just got into grade 9? Would it be fair? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely. And they vote
agree.
already for, they vote for their
They
representation
vote
in
for
the
their
boardroom
school.
already
Yeah, they get a
through
school
student
trustee,
trustees.
but the student trustee doesn't have voting rights on the board, so they have to cooperate with the collaborative.
Yes, they have to. Correct.
And that ultimately defeats the purpose. Like,
yes.
it makes them more of a prop. Like, although to be fair, on the TDSB, there's always been like very good like trustees who have worked with the student
I still
trustee.
talk to a couple of student trustees, and really serious respect for student trustees. That's a lot to balance when you're in high school.
Here's hoping for a better democracy instead of a worse one going forward.
I agree.
Folks, don't go anywhere. We will be right back after the break with our guest, Jennifer Arp, and our 3 headline topics of the week. See you sec. Today's episode of It's Getting Pretty Late with Jake Landau is brought to you by me. Folks, all of my work is available for free with no paywall at jakelandau.ca. But in order to keep writing and recording, I need money, because money is what makes this show go round. So, if you enjoy my content or find it informative, please consider a paid subscription at jakelandau.ca/subscribe. And please leave a 5-star rating on the show in your favorite podcast app, be it Apple, Spotify, or a secret third thing. Thank you, and enjoy the show. And we are back with our guest, Jennifer Arp, and our 3 headline topics of the week. Our first headline topic from The Guardian in Britain, by Great Britain, the United Kingdom, whatever you want to call it. But they're talking about Canada because occasionally they have better reporting on Canada than we do. First Nations leaders walk out of Mark Carney meeting on Building Canada Act. Concerns raised that legislation to ensure economy is less dependent on U.S. was pushed through without consultation. And the complaints here are very simple. Bill C-5, which would bypass a wide variety of regulatory limits on what infrastructure can be built and where, is facing legal challenges and protests from Indigenous groups in Canada, from First Nations and Métis and Inuit peoples, on the very simple basis that under the Constitution Act of 1982, outside the part that's the Charter, so it's completely even. You can't. There is a constitutional requirement for First Nations groups to be consulted meaningfully on projects that happen on their territory. And the Supreme Court has ruled on this. It has to be meaningful consultation. It cannot it's not a rubber stamp. And the other thing is, while it is in the Constitution Act of 1982, it's in the little-known part that's actually not the Charter from the Constitution Act of 1982. So the notwithstanding clause does not apply. There is no way for the federal or provincial government to void the requirement to consult with First Nations or the other constitutional rights that First Nations have enshrined. So, nonetheless, Bill C-5 at the federal level looks like it's going to do that anyways and build pipelines and mines and other infrastructure on Indigenous land and reserves that they are explicitly saying they do not want. And at a recent meeting with Mark Carney, several First Nations leaders walked out of the meeting before it ended because they felt that they were disrespected, that the meeting was essentially farcical. I One complained that they weren't allowed to talk directly to ministers, but were being told to just talk to the other Indigenous people seated at their table, which gives me like the immediate reminder, Jennifer, like of all of those like liberal, like post-election, what did we do wrong consultations, where they want you to talk to each other and not complain to them. Like, yeah, so I got it. I get immediately the complaint here. Like, this is that exact kind of fake consultation.
You know, the first thing that I thought was, for a prime minister who has supposedly such a well-experienced team around him, this is a really serious rookie mistake.
Well, but that's the thing. Is it a mistake, or is it that his team doesn't care either?
Or they just don't care.
Because that's
everything that was said about reconciliation and working in partnership with Indigenous community was just lip service to begin with.
Well, that's actually the other thing. I don't even know if it was lip service. I think that Justin Trudeau may have genuinely believed this. I just don't think his staff or his successor do. Like, was he perfect? No, there were a lot of problems that Trudeau had during his time, but we all have to be very clear about the fact that he is leagues and fathoms beyond any other prime minister in Canadian history when it comes to the issue of reconciliation. Like, it's not debatable. But at the same time, Indigenous people are more than fair in saying that's still not enough and that's still not acceptable. And I am not anyone to disagree with that. Like, but this is indisputably worse. Like, this is much worse.
Oh, and just created at a period of time where we need to be unifying as a country, created really serious divisions, and unnecessarily so. You know, you don't need to. Sometimes a slower approach creates a better outcome, and ramming through this legislation in the way that they did it has created more harm and broken relationships that, you know, will take now years to repair as a result, and set us back even further.
I know the Grand Chief Cody Diabo of the Mohawk Council of Kanawake, which is located in Quebec near Montreal, said, "I don't even know what this is, but this is not engagement. This is definitely not consultation. I'm speechless." Guilokim Gibu, the deputy chief of Hagwilget Village Council in northern British Columbia, told the CBC, "I didn't have much faith in the process to begin with, and I'm leaving very concerned." Like, this is very frank. Like, they're really unhappy.
Yes.
And they're completely right to be unhappy. Not that they need my permission or sanction to be unhappy. Like, this makes me fucking ashamed. Like,
and it should make every Canadian upset too.
And if it doesn't make you ashamed, if it doesn't make you upset, then you don't care. Like, and I don't want to be nice about that to people. It's like, the part of being a Canadian citizen is acknowledging that this country was built on doing some heinous and terrible shit, and that for the rest of time, pretty much, we will be making that up.
Yes.
Like,
and so we should be.
Yeah, and I hate when conservatives are like, "Oh, well, you're making people feel bad about themselves." And I'm like, well, sometimes you should feel bad. Like, it's like after the Holocaust, it's like Germans were made to feel bad about themselves, and they fucking should have felt bad because it was terrible. And
it was terrible.
Yeah, and it's like people are like, "Oh, you shouldn't feel bad about residential schools." No, we should, because we were doing that until the fucking 90s. It's like the governments that like our parents and grandparents voted for were all actively doing that. Like, so, like, this idea that, saying you're right, it's like, there's this horrible bait and switch where, like, for the first time under Trudeau, it maybe felt like there was going to be a genuine change in how things worked for the better. And then, like, it's just ripped back. It's cruel. It's like, I hate it. Like, it just makes my blood fucking boil.
Yes. Unfortunately, it's summer, and not a lot of Canadians would have known that it happened.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that's part of why they do it now, like at the start
Of
of
course.
like when you have all these people on Twitter who, whenever I write a column about these things, they'll say, "You're not being fair, you're not giving him a chance." And I'm like, he got the chance on the first day, and then he started doing bad things. What these people are not beyond reproach, these politicians. They are accountable to us. We are their
Correct.
boss. We pay their
Correct.
salary. Uh, uh, and what really scares me about this one is like there's just no acknowledgement of like historically what has happened in this country, like the last time like people try people forget that the Oka crisis was a thing. Like
Yeah.
people forget that like there was like armed resistance, and then you had indigenous kids getting bayoneted in the chest by Canadian soldiers. Like the like I don't think people understand, if the federal government keeps escalating, just how dangerous this could become. And it is the
Oh,
federal government escalating. Like it is
correct.
not like if indigenous people like start like patrolling their reserves now with guns, like I can't blame them. Like the hostility is being intentionally ratcheted up, and they're essentially being told, we're going to take your land to build a mine or an oil rig or whatever, like whether you like, or a pipeline, whether you like it or not. It's like how should they react? Like it's not for me to say what reaction is appropriate. It's for me to tell like the government embracing colonial attitudes to stop fucking doing that.
Yes, I completely agree with you.
Yep. Yeah. So fun, lighthearted, not depressing at all stories
Yeah.
here on It's Getting Pretty Late with Jake
On
Landau.
this Monday afternoon.
Yeah. Moving on to our second topic of the week. More than 100 candidates, most in Canadian history, to run against Pierre Poilievre in a federal by-election. According to the CBC, 108 candidates have registered so far, beating out the previous record for most candidates in a federal election of 91. And this by-election will be taking place in Alberta's Battle River Crowfoot, where Pierre Poilievre had Damien Carrick, who is recently re-elected for the Conservative Party, resign so that Pierre Poilievre can run in that place. And while it may be the most craven and blatant example of parachuting I've seen in many years, at least unlike Bonnie Crombie, he may perhaps have a seat in the future. But certain other people in the riding have a different thing to say about that. The longest ballot committee is upset that electoral reform is not happening. So as part of their protest, as part of their plan to disrupt the status quo, they are organizing dozens and dozens of candidates to run in pretty much every federal by-election that happens, so that the ballot becomes larger and larger. And essentially, the disruption it causes is that because federal ballots are still counted by hand, thankfully, provincially, we count them by computer, so scrutineers get to go after 10 minutes when polls close. Essentially, it makes ballot counting go very, very, very long. And this makes a lot of people upset. Pierre Poilievre said, we have to take action because this is a scam, it is unfair, it is unjust, and must stop. And I am laughing because, as someone who has been a pretty active protester in the past for various causes, I usually mark a successful protest by causing enough disruption that people have to take notice. So all the people that this seems to be making mad just seem to be proof to me that the very least the longest ballot committee seems to have made themselves unignorable. Will that
Unignorable, and in the process engaging some really interesting local candidates in that riding.
Yeah, like it's also it's because they really are just like signing up like a bunch of people. There's not really any vetting, but also they're all listed as independents, and
Yes.
they all share an official agent. And I think this is the one complaint I think is valid. Normally, my opinion is very lax. I think if you meet the rules set by Elections Canada to be a candidate, you should be allowed to be a candidate, and I don't think the few major parties should be able to directly set rules to limit the ability of other parties to challenge them and potentially grow. If that was the case, we would not have two Green members of provincial parliament in Ontario. If this, like, you get the idea. But I do think that you should not be able to have an official agent represent more than one candidate in the same riding, because there's an obvious conflict of interest there. I think the same person should perhaps be allowed to represent candidates for multiple different ridings, say, like, that way, like, a Liberal candidate in one riding can use the same official agent for legal purposes as the Liberal next door. But I think it doesn't make sense. Like, you would never want the Liberal and Conservative candidate to have the same official agent. That would be crazy. Like, no.
Correct.
So that's the one complaint I will give credit to. But ultimately, like, it's hard for me to blame people for the way they're protesting for electoral reform when pretty much every party that takes power refuses to keep a promise. Like, either parties say they won't support it, or parties say they will support it, and then they get elected and then they change their mind.
Exactly.
So like, it's hard. Like, yeah, it's like if, like, the Liberals and Conservatives and even the NDP, if we're going to be frank about their provincial parties, especially in BC, if none of them are acting in good faith on electoral reform, I don't see why the longest ballot committee should have to play nice about it.
No, yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, it's well, I mean, unfortunately, Jennifer, it's a shame that you agree. I was hoping for some argument and clash.
No, there's no argument on this one.
Damn.
I agree, and I'm having a good long chuckle at the fact that there's that many candidates there.
I know,
and I really hope that riding does the right thing and kicks Polly up to the curb.
Oh, if it happens a second time, it will be extremely funny.
Yes.
I do feel bad for a genuine independent candidate who's not from the longest ballot committee. Her name is Bonnie Critchley, not Bonnie Crombie, a better Bonnie. Yeah. I like this Bonnie.
Who's going door to door and doing the hard work and getting the media attention and doing all of those things.
Right. She's working hard to get elected, and and she's complained to the longest ballot committee, and she's like, I have to keep every time at the door, I have to explain I'm not one of you and that I'm an actual candidate trying to run. And like, I feel bad for her because like that is unfortunate. But at the same time, it's like, damn, wouldn't it be great then if instead of first past the post, you could have a ranked ballot where you didn't make candidates compete with each other directly and they could, advertise, the things they have in common? Wouldn't that be great for our democracy and health?
It would be incredible. It would
going back to like the Zoran Mamdani example from the first half, it's like the Democratic Party in the US, like their nominations, their primaries are run with a ranked ballot, the same as the federal and provincial Liberal parties too. So, and what that meant was like Zoran Mamdani and Brad Lander were like, you should rank me number one, but you should rank this guy number two, because we have a lot in common and we'd rather it be either of us versus Andrew Cuomo. And it works. And not just does it work, but it's healthy for democracy. Like, it's good when you have politicians encouraged by the system itself and the structural incentives to be friendly to each other.
And then in turn, when you have, any sort of elected body, that's being established by ranked ballot, you're also forcing those people that have been elected to be more accountable to their communities, thus enriching democracy as a result.
Right, because even if you didn't put them as your number one, like, you may have put them as your number two, and you may still feel an attachment to them, and just the same, They know that their diehard partisans are not the full extent of their base, and that they need to extend their reach further and be more conciliatory to other people. Doesn't mean you can't have an ideology. God knows I'm certainly very left-wing and that borderline socialist. But like, it means that you got to be persuasive in these things. It means that you got to convince other people why it's collaborative.
Well, and then it's reflective of the vast majority of the people in Canada who aren't a member of a political party.
Right. Like, we are very weird people. Like the idea of like tying yourself to the identity of a specific political party, it is very, very weird. Most people do not do this.
No.
Yeah. Like, no. I don't mean necessarily weird in a bad way, but sometimes I do think politicos need to just like go out, touch grass, like go to a bar and just realize like nobody knows what you are talking about.
And those from Toronto every once in a while leave Toronto.
Yeah. Like,
there's a whole other world.
And going to Ottawa does not count as leaving Toronto. Like,
no, it doesn't. That's just increasing your echo chamber.
Go to Barrie. Like, Barrie is...
Go to Collingwood. Yeah. Go to Barrie.
Yeah. Barrie, like, and I mean, Barrie, the Ontario Liberal Party, they got very close in 2022 with Jeff Lehman. Like, I think just only 100 votes off from winning. Mm-hmm. Like, so it's like the like people like go to these places, like get outside your bubble, like talk to people who aren't necessarily the same as you, and you may be shocked. They might still be willing to vote for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That is my general political strategy I advise candidates on, rather than complaining that it's unfair for other candidates to be on the ballot with you. But we'll see how Pierre Poilievre does. But yeah, best of luck to him. I hope he gets everything he wants in life. What a guy. Yeah.
What a guy. I was like, everything he deserves is maybe a better...
Everything he deserves. Moving on to our final topic of the day. And folks, believe it or not, we do actually have a happy story for you for once in the history of this show. Last week, we told you about the tragic story of a girl with a very rare disease in British Columbia, Shirley Pollock, who had coverage for her medication denied by the provincial government, and then upon appeal it had been denied again by Health Minister for the BC NDP government, Josie Osborne. And obviously this was extremely upsetting to a lot of people around the country, and it got a lot of attention. Especially, there was a lot of political complaints as well. Like, there were conservatives who were saying, how is it that the BC NDP are trying to defund public health care? And it was especially enraging because the government was saying, we don't have evidence that it'll help her anymore, but if private people want to fundraise the money for her, then that would be fantastic. And I'm like, well, wait, medication is prescribed based on need. If you're saying it wouldn't help her, then you wouldn't allow it to be prescribed even if it was fundraised. Like, there was clearly and it was also not universal that she would not benefit from the medication. Like, various countless experts on this rare disease were brought in to say that the medication is intended for people with her stage of disease progression, and that it was still extending the life of her disease, her life, and increasing her quality of life. And again, this is like a young girl with a terminal illness, and for $1 million a year, that's the cost for the provincial government to give her time with her family. I don't have a kid, but I could not imagine being a parent in this position. It is genuinely one of the most upsetting things that I have read in news recently. But the good news for everybody, and the reason we're bringing this story up again this week, even though we talked about it last week, is that the provincial government of British Columbia has apologized. They have reversed the decision. Shirley will be receiving the medication. It will be covered by the provincial healthcare program. And curiously, 4 members of the 50-person committee that literally called the Expensive Drugs for Rare Diseases Committee, which decides whether the provincial government should cover expensive drugs for rare diseases. 4 of them have resigned in protest of the government changing their mind and giving the girl Medicaid. Think about that, Jennifer. They are resigning because they are upset the sick child will receive medicine.
It,
We are in hell.
it is one child. And that's the thing about like rare diseases and funding for rare diseases. We're not talking about a lot of people, and the grand scheme of a provincial budget, we're not talking about a lot of money
like
here.
$1 million a year is complete
for this
peanut.
one child, and there's some more floating around out there, but even still.
Yeah, and no parent should ever be put in a position of having to fucking beg for their child's life. That's such an obscene and heinously cruel thing to do.
Beyond child's life, but their quality of life as well.
Right. It's heinous, and it's like, I'm glad that that she will get the medication now. I am genuinely happy that the minister changed their mind. But let us be entirely honest, the only reason they changed their mind is because an entire country of parents screamed at her.
Yes.
The BC, and also let's be frank about what it means to have the Expensive Drugs for Rare Diseases Committee. Because the idea of having to make a decision implies that sometimes, as they tried to do here, they'll decide a rare disease is not worth treating. And you know what? It's one thing for Health Canada to say there's no evidence for a medication to be helpful. It is another thing for medication that does have evidence of being helpful for them to do this Malthusian, eugenics bullshit where they're it's cheaper to let the disabled people die. I mean, I'm autistic, and that kind of thing boils my blood because it's what they try to fucking do to people like me.
It also speaks to the need for standardization across the country.
Yeah, whether or not a medication is covered should not change based on your province.
Correct. When you look at, let's talk about multiple sclerosis for a minute. Every province has even approved for use different drugs. British Columbia, access to MS drugs in British Columbia is more difficult than the rest of the country. And that's even if you have private insurance to cover your medication.
It's just getting approval for it to be prescribed. It's getting
approval. Approved by Health Canada, approved in all of the other provinces, not approved in British Columbia.
And this really turns me honestly against our system of federalism in general, or at least it makes me think maybe the provincial governments are a bit too strong relative to the federal government. Because you're right, why should your right to healthcare, your right to live, change based on where you are in the country?
Correct.
You don't get different diseases. I mean, okay, if there's a local outbreak of a certain thing, but you get the idea. It's people in Alberta aren't immune to measles. It's people in Nunavut aren't immune from breaking their leg. We're all human beings. We're all the same fleshy, delicate meat bags that need a lot of tender, loving care.
I agree.
Yeah.
If it's approved by Health Canada, you should be able to have access no matter where you live in the country.
Right.
Full stop.
And if it isn't approved by Health Canada, of course there should be, and there is, a proper appeal mechanism, but that wasn't the problem here.
No.
It was a drug which has a fair amount of consensus that it is helpful specifically for that condition, and they tried to be cheap bastards about it. And thankfully public attention got caught on it, but it makes me wonder, how many other things have happened like this in Canada that we just didn't notice?
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
It happens all the time, especially to individuals that don't understand how to navigate the system and advocate for themselves.
Right. And like how many times, like instead of it happening to like an adorable like young child, how many times does it happen to like someone in their 40s or 50s where the government just stops funding their medication and they're already on disability, they can't afford to pay for it, and they die. Like that's what happens. Like we ignore it. We don't talk about it, but that's what government ableism is in practice from government policy.
And not only that, but chances are their deaths are costing more than the treatment would have, even if that disease was terminal.
Right.
Because you're
not that
you're
that should even be our main thought, though.
It's like end of life care.
Yeah. Even if it did cost more to keep them alive, like I wouldn't care.
It shouldn't be an issue, but I'm just saying
that's what we pay
like
for.
The conservative, to appeal to any conservatives that might be listening out there.
Yeah. In case you don't have a conscience, let me talk to you about money.
Yeah.
God. It sucks because it's like we always compare ourselves to the Americans and we talk about how we're a better country because we have public health care, how we're a kinder country because we don't do this sort of thing to people. And then we do. Like we keep it quiet, but we do. Does it mean we're as bad as America yet? No. But I pray for a version of Canada where instead of saying we're not as bad as America, we say, what if we were better than we are now? Like, what if we were willing to make a version of Canada that is also, what if our only comparison point wasn't the United States? What if we took what if we took lessons from, some other countries around the world that seem to be a fair bit more compassionate than we are sometimes? Yeah. Dare to dream. Jennifer, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the program. Thank you so much for joining today, and hopefully we might have you again soon.
Thanks so much, Jake. This was great.
Thank you. Jennifer Arp, everybody. And that'll do it for this week's episode, folks. Thanks once again to Jennifer Arp for joining the program. Next week's episode will also come out on Monday evenings, so we were going to still be on the Monday schedule for at least one more week before hopefully returning back to our Sunday cadence. And next week's episode will have another very special guest who you will be very excited to hear on our program. But as always, the guests' identities are a surprise until the episode premieres. So make sure you tune in and find out. Thank you, folks, and have a good night. This is the end of the show. Bye.